Hey everyone, ready to unlock some serious learning superpowers. We're on a mission today to ditch those study struggles and really dive deep into techniques that actually make a difference.
Yeah.
We've got two awesome sources lined up. How to fix it, which is going to be our practical playbook, big actionable tips. But first, we got to get real with why people are generally bad at studying.
Yes.
It's like a friendly reality check on why those old habits just aren't cutting it. So no more cramming or just staring blankly at textbooks hoping something sticks. Let's get this deep dive started.
It's funny because the way we're often told to study, like highlighting and rereading,
Yeah.
it actually goes completely against how our brains are wired. Our brains crave something way more active.
Yeah, it's true. Like trying to learn to ride a bike by just reading the manual.
Yeah.
You're not getting very far. You have to actually get on and try it, even if you wobble a bit at first.
Exactly. And think about it. Our ancestors, they didn't learn to hunt mammoths by passively listening to lectures. They were out there, they were experimenting, making mistakes, and figuring things out through trial and error. Our brains are actually built for that kind of active engagement.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So how do we tap into that ancient wisdom how do we make it work for us in the modern world?
Well, for starters, I think we have to understand why we gravitate towards those passive learning habits in the first place, take procrastination. It's always painted as laziness, but often it actually stems from deeper emotions like fear of failure or this pressure to be perfect.
Oh, tell me about it. That perfectionism trap can really hold you back. It's like
Yeah.
you're so afraid of not getting it perfect
Right.
that you just end up not even starting.
Exactly. And then there's this whole myth of multitasking. Everybody thinks they can multitask, but our brains are actually wired for focus. And when we try to juggle multiple tasks at once, we're really just rapidly switching our attention back and forth. And this cognitive overload makes it really almost impossible for our brains to process information deeply or to even create lasting memories.
It's like trying to listen to two podcasts at once. You might catch snippets of each, but you're not really truly absorbing either one.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. So if passive learning and multitasking are out, then what's the secret weapon? How do we actually do this? And it's something called active learning.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Active learning. It sounds, active. How does it actually work?
It's about engaging with the material, right? Like really kind of forcing your brain to work a little harder. Think of it like a workout for your neurons.
Brain gains. I like the sound of that. So what are some of the best exercises in this mental gym we should be hitting?
One of the most powerful techniques is something called spaced repetition. Have you ever noticed how you tend to forget things right before you actually need them?
Oh, yeah.
Spaced repetition uses that forgetting curve to your advantage.
Wait, hold on. There's an actual curve.
There is. It's really fascinating. It's this phenomenon where our brains, they naturally start to forget information over time. But the cool thing is every time we kind of revisit that information, that forgetting curve, it actually gets shallower and shallower.
Oh, interesting. So it's like each time you bring it back up, you're reinforcing it.
Exactly. So with spaced repetition, instead of, the classic cramming all at once, you're spacing out your review sessions over, increasing intervals. And so you're basically reminding your brain of that information right when it's about to fade away. And that makes those memories so much stickier.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like you're giving your brain those little well-timed reminders instead of waiting until it's completely gone into the abyss.
Right. And speaking of strengthening those neural pathways, another game changer is retrieval practice.
Retrieval practice. Is that a fancy way of saying testing yourself?
You got it.
Okay, because if it is, I don't know if I like that.
I hear you, but hear me out, because it's not about the pressure of a graded test or anything like that. It's about you actively trying to recall that information from memory. When you force your brain to retrieve something, even if it's a struggle at first, you're strengthening those connections and making that information so much more accessible in the long run.
Oh, so it's like you're building a mental muscle.
Right.
The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
You got it. Think about it this way. When you lift weights, you're actually creating tiny little tears in your muscles. Right. And as those tears heal, your muscles get stronger. Retrieval practice is kind of like that for your brain.
Interesting. So even if I don't get everything right on the first try, the act of trying to remember is actually helping me learn it better.
Exactly. And here's another tip. Mix things up with something called interleaving. So instead of just studying one topic for hours on end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Switch between different subjects, different concepts.
Okay, so it's like a brain buffet, a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yeah.
But why? Like, how does that actually help?
Because think about it, when you're switching between those subjects, your brain has to work harder to retrieve the relevant information each time. And that effort strengthens your understanding. It helps you see connections that you might have totally missed otherwise.
It's like cross-training for your brain.
Yeah.
Okay, can get behind that.
Yeah.
So we've got all the techniques down, but what about the actual execution? How do people take these awesome ideas and actually apply them, like in the real world? And that's where how to fix it comes in handy, right?
Exactly. One of the simplest but most effective tools they recommend is the Pomodoro technique. Are you familiar?
Vaguely. It rings a bell, but yeah, refresh my memory.
Okay, so it's basically a time management method, and it breaks down your study sessions into these like focused intervals. So typically it's like 25 minutes of work followed by a 5-minute break.
Okay.
And then you repeat that cycle 4 times, and then you take a longer break, like 15, 20 minutes.
So it's like interval training, but for your brain.
Exactly.
Instead of these marathon study sessions that leave you just mentally exhausted. I like it.
Exactly. And those breaks are just as important as the focused work periods because it's a chance for your brain to rest and recharge so you can come back even more productive.
That makes sense. It's like trying to sprint a marathon.
Yeah.
You need those moments to catch your breath and refocus.
Precisely. How to fix it also emphasizes the importance of like a distraction-free environment. And often that starts with silencing those tempting phone notifications.
Oh, guilty as charged. My phone is like a magnet for my attention.
Oh, yeah. It happens to all of us. But even just like putting your phone on Do Not Disturb or using a website blocker can make such a difference in your focus.
It really is amazing how those little distractions can totally derail your train of thought.
Huh.
Okay, so no phones. What else?
Think about your workspace, too. Good lighting is key. Natural light, if you can swing it. A comfortable chair, definitely important. And don't underestimate the power of having all of your materials organized and within reach.
Oh, I've definitely been there with the uncomfortable chair situation. Trying to study in those conditions is like just asking for a backache.
It's all about setting yourself up for success before you even start studying.
So true. It's like creating a little haven for your brain to thrive.
Yeah.
But even with the best techniques, the perfect workspace, sometimes like motivation can be a real struggle. So any advice on how to stay pumped about learning?
Yeah, motivation, that's key, right? And it's not just about like those external rewards, like, getting good grades or whatever. It's about tapping into what we call intrinsic motivation, like that inner drive to learn and grow. Okay, I love that idea, but that can be so elusive. How do you find that spark, that inner spark when you're facing, a mountain of textbooks?
Well, how to fix it talks about finding personal meaning in the material, like asking yourself, how does this connect to my life? Or what makes me curious about this?
So instead of just memorizing facts and figures, it's like you're finding those little personal connections that make it come alive.
Exactly. When you're genuinely interested in something, learning becomes less of a chore and more of an adventure. And setting those personal learning goals can be so motivating too.
Yeah, it's like the difference between saying, I need to learn this for the test, versus I want to master this skill because it'll help me achieve insert awesome goal here.
Yes, I love that. It's that shift from like external pressure to internal drive. And when you frame it that way, those study sessions, they start to feel like stepping stones towards something that you actually really care about. It's like training for a marathon, right?
Sure.
It's tough, but you push through those tough moments because you're so driven by that vision of yourself crossing the finish line.
Yes. And just like marathon training, you need to be kind to yourself throughout that whole process. And How to Fix It talks about this too, like cultivating that growth mindset. It's so essential.
But the growth mindset, that's about embracing challenges and seeing like setbacks as learning opportunities, not failures.
Exactly. Recognizing that your abilities, they're not fixed. They can be developed through dedication and effort.
So instead of thinking, oh, I'm just not good at this, it's I'm not good at this yet, but I can get there.
I love that yet. It's such a small word, but it makes a world of difference in how we approach challenges.
It's like giving yourself permission to be a work in progress. Embrace that messy, beautiful journey of learning. And, it strikes me that these techniques and these mindsets, they're not just for school, right?
Right. Absolutely not. These are life skills, whether you're learning a new language, picking up a musical instrument, or even navigating like a whole career change. These principles can make you a more effective, more empowered learner in literally all aspects of life.
It's so true. And that's what makes this so exciting. It's about unlocking that potential for lifelong learning and growth. So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive here into the world of better learning, what are some key takeaways you hope our listeners will carry with them?
I think first and foremost, remember you are not alone in this. Like we all face these study struggles. We all have those moments of procrastination, self-doubt. But by understanding how our brains work best, we can start working with them, not against them.
Exactly. So ditch those passive learning habits, embrace those active learning techniques like the spaced repetition, the retrieval practice, and remember the power of a distraction-free environment.
Yes. And don't forget those intrinsic motivators. Really connect with the material, set those personal goals, and approach learning with curiosity and that growth mindset.
So much great advice. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, but we've only just scratched the surface of what's possible.
That's the beauty of it, though, isn't it? Learning is an ongoing journey, and there's always something new to discover, something more to learn.
It truly is. So to our amazing listeners, keep exploring, keep experimenting, and keep that love of learning alive. We'll be back next time with another
For more
deep
short-form
dive into a
podcasts like
fascinating
these,
topic.
please like
Until
and subscribe.
Then, happy learning,
The top
everyone.
comment on this video will be the topic of our next podcast. Goodbye.